Hi, everyone. Good morning to us. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to every one of us. Is an opportunity to have a conversation on YADA webinar series. Interestingly, today's webinar series basically will touch on scholarship and study abroad opportunities. You may be aware that over some years now, there's been a couple of interesting conversation on the scholarship and development space, most of which revolve around how young people in Africa can gain increase or can develop their capacity through advanced knowledge in developed countries, mostly through scholarship and exchange programs. Today, we have with us a couple of amazing and interesting speakers that will be sharing their experience with us, their experience with scholarship and application processes, especially as it relates to their respective countries. I'm excited to introduce them. I would like them to, okay, pretty much the webinar etiquette revolves around ensuring that everyone mutes. We have to mute throughout the conversation and also ensure that your camera is off. To the speakers, however, please switch on your camera before you make your contribution. And for those, we'll also be taking questions as well at the end of the conversation. Please, if you are selected to ask a question, kindly as well switch on your camera and then pretty much ask your question. And before you ask your question, kindly introduce yourself by telling us your name and your country from where you're joining the conversation. Rather by now, I would like to just take it off to our speakers. We have 4 amazing panelists. Oh, I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Chukso Korekwe. Currently, you're the Nigeria president. Currently as well, I'm based in DC. I'm happy to moderate today's conversation. I would also introduce some of our esteemed speakers who are here to also kindly tell us briefly about themselves. I'll start with Elijah. Elijah Kume, can you kindly tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Chooks. My name is Elijah Kome, and I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm a community manager at 8B Education Investments, which is a company that provides financing to African students who want to study abroad. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elijah, for that amazing introduction. I would also like to welcome Ridwan Amoako to kindly introduce himself as well. Thank you. While we wait for Ridwan to introduce himself, I would like to call on Tandiwe Majama to kindly introduce us. Okay, Ridwan is on. Oh, Ridwan, please go right ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm actually driving, so it's a bit noisy in my background. So my name is Ridwan, and I'm into software engineering. Currently, I work as a product manager for a biotechnology company, and I also run in parallel an education consultancy where I help students find schools in Europe and the US, and also help them find scholarships. I do this with a team of 5 PhD candidates, some are postdoc. So we kind of help advise on what path to take. And also I do some form of tech mentorship. So if you are in a different field, like into any other STEM field or non-STEM field, and you'd want to move into software development, I also do mentorship for people. So basically, that's all about myself. I've been working for close to 13 years in Europe. And yeah, so I'm happy to be here and hope to give my expertise and also learn from others. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ridwan, for that introduction. I would like to also call Tandiwe to kindly tell us briefly about herself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please, kindly go ahead.
Okay, so my name is Tandiwe. I'm from Botswana and I am currently a student doing my master's. Right now, I would like to lead with the fact that I am a member of YALDA. I've been a member since 2011 and I've seen great benefits. So right now, yeah, I'm just focusing on finishing my degree and hopefully gaining more opportunities and helping others gain more opportunities. Yes.
Thank you so much, Tandiwe. Alino, you have your hands raised. Do you have a question? This is actually not the time for audience question. I would like us to delve right into the questions for the speakers. I'd like us to delve right to the question for Immaculata. I don't know if Immaculate is with us. I haven't seen on the list of participants. Nonetheless, I would like us to proceed to the questions for the speakers. To all the speakers right now, from your experience, how has scholarship and study abroad opportunities afforded you the opportunity for professional development with increased capacity to contribute to Africa's development? I would like to start with Elijah. Elijah, could you kindly share your thoughts with us on this question?
Sure, sure, Chuks. Thank you. So, how has scholarship and studying abroad basically improved my professional opportunities? That's a very good question. So I'll speak very briefly about myself first. So as I said, I come from Kenya and I studied in the USA in a school called Immerse College, and I did a bachelor's of liberal arts there. I graduated in 2019. And for me, I can say the biggest professional opportunities I've seen is basically the networks from my school. The friends I made there and the alumni connections that I got, I feel they really helped me professionally. Because when I was looking for a job just right after graduation, it was an alumni who really connected me with the industry I wanted to get into, that is the education. So I would say for me, the alumni networks in these international universities are really strong and really useful. And I feel to me that has been probably the greatest benefit of studying abroad. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elijah. Ridwan, can you go next, please? Or while we wait for Ridwan, Tandiwe, given that you are a current student, can you tell us how this has affected or impacted your capacity, especially given what you know before starting school and what you've gained, what you've learned so far?
Thank you, Chuks. So for me, a couple of things. In terms of professional development, I would say the biggest thing is that studying has exposed me to different possibilities of a career. So for instance, my background, my bachelor's degree was in law, and I'll just speak about myself. I had no interest after studying my law degree of going into actually practicing it. And then when I came to Europe, I got exposed to other careers, like apart from just practicing law or one type of law, then I was exposed that you have technology law, we have issues that are going on with like trade, and technology. So for me, it's the exposure to careers. You never know that you can't only be a nurse, a police officer, a soldier, but there are other smaller or other careers that you had never heard about, and you will only hear about when you are exposed to them. So, and then the other thing for me currently is that I think because the continent is, in my belief, there's a lot of research opportunities. And I would say research opportunities because I've seen that there is a benefit to research scientists, that there are areas as well that you would probably never think of going into until you are exposed to them. So for me, a lot with my current degree, I've been exposed to a lot of economics, studies, a lot of technology related studies, a lot of information about big data, people's privacy, which is things that on the continent we probably don't think about a lot. But as we are using the internet, these are things that are affecting. People are mining our data and using it for their benefit. So I would say career-wise and research opportunity-wise, that has been the biggest thing that professional development-wise I've benefited.
Thank you so much, Tandewe. Ridwan, I don't know if you can speak now.
Yes, yes,
Awesome.
I'm
Please
here.
go right ahead.
Right. So first and foremost, leaving your comfort zone, leaving your home country, and then moving to a different country obviously has some benefits. It gives you opportunities. But specifically when you move to a country that has got better, living conditions and better education, better working conditions than yours, then it's even better. Right? It's had an opportunity to with a native, to somebody who. So I studied in Germany, so I had the opportunity to collaborate with a German to found a startup. Right, a startup, but I had the opportunity to found a startup. I learned how to, build a startup from scratch, and I learned some work ethics, how to find funding, how to write proposals and all that, how to recruit people and all that. I had this great opportunity traveling abroad. Not, aside the quality of education, I also had the opportunity to start my own startup. So I think education, living abroad, leaving my home country and then getting education abroad has really opened my perspective in both education and work. Hello?
Ridwan, I think we lost you for a bit. Can you kindly just recap what you're saying?
Okay, so I was. Hello? Right. So I'm not sure where exactly I dropped off, but I was like right after school, I had opportunity to start a small startup with a German friend of mine, and that opportunity actually opened my eyes to so many things. And I mentioned opened my eyes to work ethics, opened my eyes to how rules and eyes to build my own professional experience. So in terms of both academics, yeah. in terms of both academics, the quality of education, and also the environment perspective of life in general. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ridwan, for sharing with us your experience. So I'd like to basically delve into some other areas. I also benefited from study about opportunity. I was at University of Florida 2 years ago, finished from University of Florida, then moved to DC, where I currently reside. So study abroad basically, gives afford Africans the opportunity to learn. You're not just learning your academics, your studies, you would also have the opportunity to work with people across different cultures. And of course, you would have to learn to, live with them as well. So I would like to ask Elijah this question. Although there are schools in Canada and the USA, many of them offer scholarship and funding opportunities. Just like you said, you were at immerse and they had quite a number of funding opportunities for international students. One of the challenges that Africans or young people generally in Africa face is the fact that the space, the available space, is rather small compared to the number or the volume of applications these schools receive. How would you advise a prospective applicant, a young person in, say, for instance, in a rural village in Kenya? How should the applicant prepare his application to receive funding from these schools?
Thank you, Chu.
Experience started.
Thanks. That's a very good question. And I think it can be answered in a number of ways. But based on my experience, I would say the very first thing a student needs to do is conduct proper research. So when you're looking at universities in Canada and the United States, you really have to think about something called a match, or basically you have to think about suitability. How are you and the school well matched? Are you suitable for that particular school? So you need to do your research properly. You need to really visit that school's website, learn as much as you can about it. So the very first step is doing your research properly. Do your research, number one. Number two, you need to have the right academic credentials. If you're applying to Harvard, I don't know if everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, we cannot hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, good. I saw someone wrote in the chat that they can't hear anything, so I was a bit concerned. Okay, thanks. Okay, so yeah, as I was saying, it's really important to do your research, and then it's good to make sure that you have good academic credentials. I can't emphasize this enough. So if you're applying to Harvard and you have C's and D's on your transcript, it's going to be very hard for you to get admitted there. Why? Because this is a very competitive university with a very low acceptance rate. So you need to make sure that you have looked at the admission criteria of the school you're applying to and make sure it at least matches your academic records. If you're already in school, in university or in high school, you need to make sure you work very hard to have good grades. Personally, I was given a full scholarship to Immerse College, and I can credit part of that to my academics. My grades were quite good. I had OAs. So in that front, I think I had done a good job. But this is not the only thing that you need when applying to the US and Canada. You also have to think about other things like extracurriculars. It's not just academics. So have you done anything outside of school? Have you volunteered somewhere? Have you been in a leadership position? Have you, do you challenge yourself outside of academics? It's really, really important. If you want a scholarship, it's good for you to be involved in other things apart from academics. So you need to be a well-rounded student. That really improves your points in the US and Canada. The last point I would mention is it's very important for you as a student to get proper documentation. So understand how recommendation letters should be written, understand how transcripts should be presented, understand how financial documents should be submitted. If you don't know, ask people who have done it before. Ask people like us, who have been there, ask people like Chooks and others. Let them tell you what good documentation looks like. Without good documentation, it's going to be very hard to get admission and a scholarship. So make sure your documents are in good order. So that's what I would say in summary. If you want to stand out and get funding in the US, you really have to keep these points in mind. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Elijah. Just to also add to what Elijah said, I think one other factor that most people or most applicants don't take cognizance of is positioning. Although Elijah did mention it, but it's been intentional about positioning. I will use myself as an example, right? When I started legal practice in Nigeria, I was mostly into advisory, general advisory, but I needed to develop capacity in tax law. Then what did I do? I reached out to a couple of friends who were already in tax practice, got some insight from them and started studying so much about tax. After which I built capacity by publishing a couple of articles, then sending my articles to potential supervisors, for the master's program across Canada and the US. And interestingly, it piqued the attention of a couple of these professors, and then we started chatting, and that was one of the contributory factors to to how I got into University of Florida. So them turn to Thandiwe. Thandiwe is presently a scholar. So I would like to ask her how our experience has been as an Erasmus Mundus scholarship recipient, in terms of how she got in and how it has been so far. I know that moving from Africa to Europe sometimes could be challenging, but let's hear from her. Thandiwe, how has it been so far, being a recipient of the Erasmus Mundus Joint Scholarship Program?
Thank you, Chooks. So for me, I would say for the most part, it's been a positive experience. And just to explain, so the Erasmus Mundus Joint Masters Scholarship, they put out a whole bunch of scholarships. So if you Google Erasmus Mundus Joint Masters Scholarship, you should be able to find, they have a website that has like catalogs of the different programs that are available. So, and then you just click on the one that you are interested in and follow on to the website of the actual program. So that's kind of what I did. I went to a meeting about Erasmus Mundus with a friend, actually, very haphazardly, and I found out about it. I looked for a degree that I thought would be interesting, and I'm currently studying, it's a very long title, Transition, Innovation and Sustainability Environment. We say TICE. So far I've been to 3 countries. I'm in my 3rd country because my program requires me to move every semester. Other people's programs could be different. Yours could be just in 1 university, but mine is in 4 universities. So for my 1st semester, I was in Portugal, and 2nd semester, I was in Ireland, and now I am currently in Poland. I moved next week, Tuesday, to Austria for my last semester. So I would say for me, it seems like a great idea to move around, but by the 3rd semester, which is now, I'm tired of moving. Every 5 months, I have to move to a new country, and it's actually very exhausting to keep moving around. But everything else, getting to learn about different cultures, it's a plus for me. Getting to meet different, because the professors are different. That's also the other thing that you learn when you are doing your master's, in my case, professors and etiquette in universities are very different. The Portuguese are very chilled people. They're like Irish university I was at had more structure. The one that I'm doing currently as well, the Polish university I'm in, has more structure. It actually reminds me a bit of home. They're very big on address me as like professor or sir, and then some of them are very casual professors. The universities I'm going to also kind of like home. They sometimes deal with paper, you know, some universities are very electronic and others are very paper. So you learn different things just from moving from university to university. The universities are different. How they do things is different. People are different. Cultures are different, and I appreciate mine a bit more, and I appreciate other people's cultures. I don't know what I didn't answer for you. So for me, prospective students could probably, or prospective applicants, like the previous speaker said, do your research. I cannot stress, him saying that was very important. Do your research and figure out if the school you want to go to matches what you desire. And if you have the papers that are required. And if you don't have the papers, build capacity, like Chuk said, build capacity for the things that you might need for your degree. I think I found out about my degree the year before. It was new, like a few months before, maybe 5 months before. And by the time the closing deadline came about, I already had all the things they needed. And I've seen some of my friends who have reached out to me and looking for an Erasmus Mundus joint master's program. They assume that the application process will be like mine. And I will stress this, the scholarship that I'm on, every program has its own criteria. Mine, I believe, was fairly easy to get into. They didn't need me to do English examinations or provide any else. As long as I could show that I can speak English, it was enough. Other people, other programs that are sponsored by this scholarship might need you to do English proficiency tests. So you have to research and you have to check the deadlines, and don't think that they're the same for every program. That's it.
Thank you so much, Tandiwe, for not stressing enough that everyone have to do their research. You have to do your independent research and know exactly the program you want to apply for. Back to Elijah. Elijah, pretty much, I know that the US has quite a lot of...
Sorry, Chooks, Ridwan is back on. He is using your link, so he's appearing as Chooks. I've asked him to change his link, his name to Ridwan, but he is online.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry. What other link are you talking about?
Okay, no, I think we can continue. Regardless, we can continue because of time. Ridwan, thank you so much for coming back. We thought we had lost you there, but nonetheless, thank you so much. I know that you do so much on Twitter, which was where we met, and I know that you do organize spaces where people interact and have conversations around scholarship opportunities, the do's and the don'ts, what to know and what not to, what to ignore, pretty much. So I would just basically like to ask you, how will you assess the potential broad-based impact of technology transfer that will result with studying abroad? I know that you did mention how you were able to start a tech company in Germany that also educates people on study abroad opportunities and the like. So, but I want us to look at it from a broad-based perspective, both in terms of the skills that will be transferred to Africans? And as the second leg of that question would be, where should we look for? Which platform should we, be on the lookout for if anyone on this call, on this webinar rather, wants to access these opportunities? Thank you.
Right. So the question is really loaded, and I'm not really sure exactly where I should start from. But in terms of technology transfer, as I mentioned in my earlier submission, when you study in a country that has got a higher technological advancement as compared to where you're coming from, then obviously you tend to gain more expertise and in-depth knowledge in your field of study. Let me narrow it down to Germany, and then narrow it down again to technology. So Germany is a very STEM intensive or STEM focused country. So they are so much into science and engineering. When you come to Germany to study any engineering program, any technology program, then trust me, so long as you put yourself through the system, you apply yourself correctly through the system, you are going to be grilled and taken through a mill such that you come out with the requisite skill that will help you to find a job. It is also always advised in Germany that whilst you are studying, you should go for what they call practicum or internships. So these internships are supposed to be with industry, and it's expected that once you are able to get an internship after school, getting a job is relatively easy. So you end up completing your school with some level of some entry-level knowledge to start with. There are some programs that will allow you to, that is mandatory, that you do your bachelor or master or whatever thesis with an industry. So before you so the industry would evaluate your work in collaboration with your supervisor at your university. So before you complete the process, you will have had hands-on, in-depth knowledge of your field of study. Then when you are done and you get into the industry itself, as I mentioned earlier, Germany has a lot of industries, like it's heavy in technology, heavy in machinery, heavy in mechanical, electrical, automobile, mechatronics. And in recent times, I like to say recent times because you can compare computer science in the United States or in North America to Germany. Germany is a bit lacking behind when it comes to the computer science of things. But when it comes to the mechanical, electronical, and other automobile aspect of things, then they are the best, out of the lot, out of those you could name. So in that aspect, yes, you have that technology, you gain that knowledge that you could always bring it back home if you want to, which you must, of course, in the long term. And then the other aspect of where to find these, so for Germany, you normally find their scholarships on the DAAD website, the DAAD website. The DAAD website has got a complete database of all the schools and those that are offering scholarships and in which field the scholarships are. So both usually it's for master's degree and for PhD. There are institutions where you have, they give scholarships, so they are not related to, they are independent institutions that give scholarships as well. And you hardly find universities themselves giving scholarships. So unless probably for a PhD program, you would have maybe a chair of a program Here, when I mean a chair, I mean a department of a given program, having funds or funding for maybe a PhD candidate, as you find in other places. So the two main places you find scholarships are, one, the GAD scholarship, and then two, independent institutions, which those are they called the Stiftung. These are independent institutions that give scholarships to students that are qualified. So yeah, basically that's what I have to say. If there's something I missed, because as I said, the question had a lot of parts to it, and probably I might have missed something. If you point me to it, I will address it.
Thank you so much, Ridwan, for that insightful contribution. I would like to turn to Elijah. Elijah, just like Ridwan rightly said, the US is peculiar in the sense that they have, there's so much funding available for students. However, not many students have the capacity to apply for these funding opportunities. If in your words, what do you think, one, students should look out for when selecting these schools, and then in terms of schools, also what do you think about the nature of the course of study the student needs to apply for to be able to gain admission into these schools?
Yeah, thank you, Chooks. Those are very good questions. So again, I think there are a number of factors when a student is considering the universities in the US and Canada, and you can't really pin it down to one or two factors. Personally, I would say the first thing you have to really think about is admission requirements. Look at the school you want to apply to. What will they require? Before you waste too much time on it, ask yourself, do I meet the admission criteria? Do I meet what they want? Then you have to look at something else. You have to look at the degree program you're interested in. You have to ask yourself, does the university have the right program for me? I know, for example, many African students want to study medicine abroad, but when you look at a place like the United States, studying medicine is a very convoluted, long path. You can't just get from high school and go there and start doing medicine. That's not how it works. So you have to ask yourself, does the university have the right course for me? And if it doesn't have my ideal course, is there another alternative that works for me? For example, if I wanted to do medicine in the US and then I realize I can only do it after doing a bachelor's degree, what will that bachelor's degree be? Will it be biology? What will it be? So you have to think about your area of study very carefully. And also you have to consider things like, I think it's particularly important when you are thinking about your area of study in the US, because there's something called STEM. And if you do a STEM degree in the US, you are able to get a longer working period there before you are required to seek a work visa. There's something called OPT in the US. It's basically optional practical. It's basically like an internship period that you are allowed by the US government to stay there and work and get some work experience. So again, that depends on your degree. If you don't do a STEM degree, I believe you're only allowed 12 months. If you do a STEM degree, you can do up to 3 years of OPT. So you have to consider things like this. That's why I said research is very important. Very important also to consider cost. How much does your school cost? In the US, education is very expensive. It's up to $70,000 per year in some universities, others up to 50,000, others 40,000. Again, this is quite expensive, especially if you compare with Europe, places like France, Germany, etc. So you have to ask yourself, what is the cost, and does this school have financial support? Yes, testing requirements. Yes, that's very important as well. I'm reminded of that in the chat. You have to look at those factors. Does my school require GRE? Does it require TOEFL? if I do GRE, do I stand better chances of getting financial support? You have to look at all these factors and really look at them carefully. You don't have to, you can't just do like whatever basic research. You need to go deep into these schools' website and see what they offer. So for me, when I was doing my research, I really wanted a small school. That was my number one. And I wanted a school with an open curriculum. And I also wanted a school that had a history of offering financial aid to African students. And after doing a lot of research, I saw Amherst College and Williams College in Massachusetts. I saw they were the best. These are schools which have a lot of financial support for international students, and they have a history of African students going there on a scholarship. And they had, they basically had they had the program I wanted to study, liberal arts. So I could study basically whatever I wanted there. So I applied and I had good documents and I did the necessary exams. And that's how I managed to get there. So I encourage you to really do your research well and make sure that the school meets exactly what you want. Otherwise, you'll be wasting your time. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Elijah. A quick one, I would like to ask us, perhaps we have any question for the speakers, kindly indicate by raising your hand. And then when you are called, you will then have to unmute and switch on your cameras as well. Okay, we have the first question. Laone, please go ahead.
Hello, everybody. I absolutely love this topic because it's close to my heart as well. I think I'm going to ask a question and speak, given my experience as well, because I also studied in the US. I started at Harvard College and also at Harvard Business School. And there are many, many experiences which I'll talk about later with regards to testing and just applying for school. And I know this is about scholarships, but what I found was that the Americans, they were ready for the testing. They have been studying how to do these tests since they were babies, since they were toddlers, right? So when you come from Africa, I came from Botswana, and I went to a high school in the US in Massachusetts, not far from Amherst, Elijah. I was at Deerfield Academy. And I used to visit my friends at Amherst. But when you now come in and you have to do the SAT, and we're mainly talking about graduate school here because this is the elder crowd, but looking at the GMATs, that was hard. And it took me ages and it was very expensive, right? I'll just like to hear from the speakers, Elijah, talk about the costs of these tests. I mean, I ended up getting tutoring and everything because the GMAT to get into Harvard Business School was not a joke. And they require scores of like 700 plus for the very good schools, and maybe, I don't know, for the other schools. And it can be very expensive. So I want to ask Elijah a little bit about if you can talk to us about the costs of taking these tests, especially for US and Canadian schools, because it's not only the top tier schools, even the middle tier, lower tier, some of these all require these tests, right? And then for those of you, Redwan and Tandiwe, can you talk about, I know Tandiwe, you said no testing requirements for you, but are there other courses that need testing? And also Redwan, what is your experience in Germany in terms of the STEM courses? Are there tests that you need to take? Who pays for them? How much are they? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laone, for that, for those amazing questions. We'll start off with Elijah, after which we'll take Tandiwe, then Ridwan goes next after Tandiwe, please. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chiefs. Thank you, Laone, for those questions. Testing is indeed very important. I remember back in 2014, when I was applying to the US, I had never heard of SAT, right? And I was not even aware what SAT subjects tests are. So for many of us, we were applying as a group. It was all very strange. we knew the concepts, but the way the questions were asked, it was very different from what we were used to. So it took a while, it took a lot of practice. And I saw many of my friends just give up and stop doing it because of the exams. They got discouraged. Remember, this was back when these exams were mandatory. Right now, not many, but a number of schools are test optional. Although I'm aware some universities are returning the testing requirements again. But yeah, so exams require a lot of practice for you to really understand how Americans ask the questions. Because you may know the content, yes, but the way, the amount of time they give you to do the exam, and also the way they ask the questions, it can be very puzzling, and you may end up failing the exam. So when you're looking at undergrad level, of course, you have to do the SATs, and you may be asked to do the English proficiency exams. So these are exams that prove that you know the English language, because obviously when you go there, the language of instruction will be English. So we are talking of exams like TOEFL, IELTS. These days there's the Duolingo test, which is gradually becoming accepted by more universities. But these exams are quite expensive. I believe SAT is the cheapest. It's probably like $60, $70 for the exam. But the TOEFL exam is very expensive. It's $220. And if you're looking at the graduate level, the GRE exams, these are again $220, I believe, right now. And this can be a big barrier for many students. So you have to plan for these expenses. I've seen students stop applying abroad just because of this barrier, the GRE barrier or the TOEFL exam barrier or the GMAT. These are big barriers. So not only for the expense, but also for the time you need to practice. So you have to keep those two things in mind. And that's why you need to start preparing very early. If you don't have the money to pay for this, look at where can I get maybe discounts. So ETS, for example, offers discounts. It offers discount vouchers that can help you take the TOEFL exam and the GRE exam for free. I know, for example, right now 8B, the company I work for, is partnering with ETS, and we are giving discount vouchers to qualified students for free. So you have to look for options like this very early. You don't have, you need to avoid waiting until the last minute, and then you realize, oh, the school requires GRE, or the school requires GMAT. I have not prepared for it, I have not paid for it. You have to think in advance. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Elijah. Tandire, can you go next, please?
Yes. So I also just remembered, as Laone was saying, I actually didn't have to take an English proficiency test because I could prove that my undergrad was in English. But I remembered that my other colleagues had to prove with their IELTS examination results that their undergraduate degrees were actually also in English. So this is a common thing in Europe that you will encounter, and I assume in the United States and Canada, that you have to prove that you have taken either IELTS or that your undergraduate is in English. And in some instances, you might find that your university might say, or the scholarship you are applying for might say they are exceptions. And I would say, if you feel like you might fall into the exceptions, email them and show them that this is what I have. Do I still need to take the IELTS? And if they say you do, then obviously you do. So my biggest advice is, where you're not sure if you need to take an English proficiency, email them. In my experience, I found that European universities actually reply via email. If it might take a few days, it might almost sometimes be a chat bot, but they actually do reply. So in any instance, and the cost. So the cost in terms of my degree, everything that you have to prepare for actually applying, it's your cost. It's at your cost because you're shooting your shot. You don't know if they'll take you or not, but it's an investment you have to make for yourself, because even if it's not this particular degree, the next one you apply for will probably also need you to have an English proficiency test.
Thank you so much, Tandiwe. Before Ridwan speaks, I would just like to quickly add this as well. There are times when, just like Tandiwe said, you can always ask that this requirement be waived. It is also applicable to application fees for these applications. You could also ask them, you know, some of them could have waivers for either applicants from a particular country or from a particular region. So just send them an email, ask them, and you know, they may waive those fees for you. Ridwan, please, you can go next now.
Yes, I think most of the things have been covered. I would like to start from I took the GRE. I think I took it twice. I took the GRE 2 times, but that was for US schools. I'm talking about somewhere within 2010, 2011. Now, during those times, even though it was a rigid requirement, you could, or at least as I recall, could send an email, as you have already said, to request for a waiver directly to the department. Specifically for TOEFL or language proficiency, I had succeeded in a couple of universities where I write to them directly, telling them that I've had all my education in English and that I would want to request for a waiver in the TOEFL language proficiency exams. So I believe now there is a wave of people who are, I have a couple of friends who are professors in the universities, in some universities in the US, and they are, most of them are, one is a Nigerian, there's 2 Ghanaians or so, and they are pushing actually very hard to ensure, to request that, especially for language proficiency, it should be waived for the English-speaking countries in Africa. And this has seen a lot of success in the latter part of last year and then the early part of this year. There are a lot of schools and universities now that are waiving English language proficiency for most people. When it comes to Europe, again, when it comes to specifically to Germany, there's also the, as I've seen, I've worked on a lot of students' applications, and there's always the caveat that if you had your bachelor's degree, or you can prove that you had your high school education in English, then the language requirement is waived. So in such cases, you need a written confirmation from your previous education that you had your education in English, or what they call the proof of language proficiency, something like that. So you write, your school have to write that letter, and then with that you can always apply to such universities. If it is not explicitly stated in the website of the university, then you could also send an email, as my other speakers have said, send an email directly, and then always state that you've had your education, if that is the case, you've had education from kindergarten all the way to university in English. You try and be specific about it. You've had all your education in English, and that you would want to request for a waiver. It does happen it does work in most cases. And for GRE and GMATs, it is hardly the case in Germany and some other parts of Europe that I have seen. However, for business schools, so if you are going to study an MBA or any business-related program, finance and that stuff, sometimes I have seen that universities may also require that you have GMATs, even in Europe, in Germany specifically. So these are the options are available. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ridwan. Okay, we have another question from Alina. Alina, can you kindly unmute your mic and switch on your camera as well? Please go ahead, Alina. Alina, are you still with us? Do we have any other question? It seems Alina is not with us at the moment. Do we have any other question? I see a couple of questions in the chat. I may take them. See a couple of questions in the chat. Hold on. Just a minute. Just a minute, just a minute. Or do we have any, there seem to be a lot of messages in the chat. Do we have any physical questions? Okay, Eric has a question. Eric, can you kindly unmute your mic and ask? Eric Alara, please, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, please, you can kindly go ahead, please.
Yeah, my name is Eric. I'm head of training of Yalda in Chad. I have only one question about this presentation of Miss Milena, Miss Tadue Majana. It is about the link that she shared with us. You know, talking about the scholarship, we have also the Francophone speaker. Maybe she has to share with us also the French speaker link to follow these opportunities. And also, I have little remarks about the meeting. All the meeting is doing in English. You never know, we have the difficulty to understand while what you are doing. Maybe by the time you have to give us the little summarized in French to be on the same level of understanding. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric, for your concern and comment. I believe the organizers of this webinar series, which is Yalda, would put your recommendation into consideration going forward. One of our speakers just joined us, Immaculate. Immaculate, can you kindly introduce yourself? And after introducing yourself, because of time, we'll ask you one question, and then we can then go back to audience question. Immaculate, can you kindly go ahead, please?
Hello, my name is Immaculate Mutinda. I'm from Kenya, and I live and study here in Germany. What is your question?
Okay. The introduction was very brief. Thank you so much, Immaculate, for
that's my name. I live in Germany. I am from Kenya. I study here, masters. I'm a master's student here. I began studying here from bachelor's back in 2015. Then later I joined masters, and then I'm sure when it comes to my turn, I'll say more. So
okay. Thank you so much, Immaculate, for making our time to join us. Yeah, I understand that even in Germany, there are instances where they are some study in Germany using scholarship offers from schools, but mostly many people as well use self-funding option. So basically, did you take the traditional route of finding a scholarship to attend school abroad instead you are self-sponsored? So can you tell us your experience so far being a self-sponsored student in Germany as opposed to going to the scholarship route?
Well, I did not take time to look for sponsorship. I just knew, I just researched how it is to live here, how much it costs to come here, and I thought I could do it by myself. But when I was in Kenya, I I didn't think or know where to look for internship, for scholarship, because I did not have something like YALDA where people can talk and share information like this. I did not even know such things exist like scholarships. But the reason why I chose this country is because I already knew the tuition here is not very costly. So I knew if the tuition is not costly, I could manage to live here by myself. So that was my choice. That was my choosing point. Have I answered the question?
Thank you so much. Yes, you have.
You will find when I came here, when I arrived here, is when I learned about a couple of scholarships that our university offers, that are offered through, let's say, DAAD or Hochschule-Stiftung, which is like foundations for, universities. And I have actually been able to win some of them, but not consistently that it sponsored my whole education from the beginning to the end. Just maybe a semester, I see a scholarship, I apply and I get it, but not consistently being sponsored from the beginning to the end. But from Kenya, I did not have this information. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Immaculata. So pretty much you're saying that there are times where schools, individual schools, offer direct scholarship that is different from those offered by respective scholarship institutions. Which,
yes.
Oh, awesome.
Yes.
Which is
so for example, in my university, I can go to the website and I will see there are they will have scholarships from different places, but mostly you will see scholarship that are kind of unique to our university. I think I had not researched that. I had seen what they have in the website now because I'm almost finished. I'm not interested to look at that point anymore. But I think probably before you get to my turn to talk, I'll probably have checked if there's something I could show. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Immaculate, for throwing more light on potential scholarship offers in Germany. Helena, your hand is still up. Do you have any question to ask? Perhaps we have more questions from the audience. Kindly do raise your hand and indicate interest to ask your question. Once you're called upon to ask, unmute your mic and switch on your camera to ask your question. Do we have any further questions from the audience? Okay, perhaps while we're waiting to get the questions from the audience, I would like to ask all the speakers this question. It could be our last question today if we don't get more questions from our audience, our listeners. So what has it been? What has it been like living in a foreign country? Or what was it for Elijah that is now back to Kenya? What was it like living in a foreign country? For many of us, we've never left our country before. Studying abroad would afford us the opportunity to travel outside our country for the very first time. I know that they do talk about culture shock when traveling abroad for the first time. I would like to ask our speakers how they were able to navigate the challenges that comes with studying abroad, especially managing their schedules and class and the likes. I would like to take Ridwan first, then Elijah can go next, and Tandiwe, followed by Immaculate. Please go ahead, Ridwan.
Thank you very much. So the cultural shock is generally in two forms. The shock when it comes to the way the academics is organized, the academic structure, and then literally the culture shock, right? So how the country is organized, how things work, how to find accommodation and all these things, how to find job. And if you go to a place where the language is not in English or in French, if you're coming from a Francophone country, then you would have to learn the language of the country. So these two things are the big things that one has to face before you can really survive in any country. For me personally, I am personally a quick learner of languages. So I was able to learn in fact, I have to mention that I worked in Turkey, so I live in Turkey as well, not for education. So I speak Turkish language, and then in Germany, you have to learn the language. So the way to open the doors for yourself is to first learn the language. Once you learn the language, a new different country opens to you, as opposed to just trying to associate with only those who speak the English language. When it comes to the way the academic is also organized, you realize that it's very different from how things are done back home, at least from Ghana, where I come from. The semester system, where you have the admissions in the winter and the summer semester, or if in the US, maybe fall and the spring, summer and fall, or whatever you call it in the US. It was a bit different for me. And then also the pace at which the course was organized. So for somebody like me coming from Africa, you would have no option than to make sure that there's no going back. So you put in all the effort. You seek help from the right people who have been designated for extra help. So for example, if you are teaching assistants or the professor themselves have got open office hours where you can go and see them, then you make use of those hours so that you make sure that you catch up. Because it's almost always the case that your background, what you have learned in your home country might have some loopholes, or the depth at which things were taught may not be similar to the bachelors in those countries. Because the master's or PhD, they assume that you have a certain background, right? So if you do not have that background from your home country, that also becomes a big challenge, that you have to first cover the prerequisites and then match up or be in sync with what is currently being taught. So it all boils down to putting in the effort, finding people who can help you, and then also people who are within your circle. So within your people who might also come from Africa or from a home country who are maybe ahead of you, to seek guidance from them as to how they went about it. So when you're coming, make sure that you research the courses properly, and then try to do some self-study. Now there's a lot of opportunity, information online. YouTube is there, Coursera is there, Udemy is there. You can pick courses and then get yourself up to speed with some of the things before you come, right? And also don't shy away from asking questions, asking your professors when you need this kind of help. So that's what I did. My cultural shock was with the education and with the language, and these are how I went about learning them. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ridwan. Elijah, can you give us your thoughts on this, please?
Sure, Chooks. Thanks. So for me, the first time going outside the country was in 2015. I left Kenya and went to the US. And for me, I think there were a lot of factors that really contributed to the culture shock. First of all, even traveling abroad. That was my first time traveling abroad, being in a plane, being in a new country. It was overwhelming, I would say. And I think what really helped me was, I would say, the international students community in my school. So I would say that is really helpful. I met students from Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, everywhere, and we had an international students office at immerse. And these guys really helped us navigate the customs, they just helped us navigate everything, how to take the bus, how to buy something from the shop, how to use the currency, like there were a lot of small things. And it was really helpful having the older international students there showing us the ropes. So I heavily leaned on these students, and they really helped me. I would say the second thing that was surprising was academics, as the previous speaker said. There are lots, it takes a bit of time to get acclimated to the way they teach in the US. So for example, you realize speaking up in class is very important in the US. You have to give your thoughts freely and openly. You don't have to be scared of your professors or your teachers. And it takes a bit of time, especially for African students, to really gather that courage, that boldness to speak in classroom and contribute actively. So that was another big surprise for me. Then there's the weather. I think weather is it's a very big factor. Yeah, it really depends on where you go to school. Some places are very cold. So I was in Massachusetts, and the winters can be very harsh. So you have to be prepared for negative 20, 30 degrees temperature of that range, and it can be overwhelming if you're used to a hot country like Kenya or most African countries. So you have to go prepared to buy winter boots, winter coats, and all that. So that's why when you're choosing a school, it's really also important to look at location. Where is this school? Does it experience very harsh winters, or is it in a very hot place? How is it? So those are the main things I saw, which were different from what I was used to. But thankfully, by the time I was in my second year, that year I had gotten used to everything, even the harsh winters. And I would say, just go with the same attitude, be open-minded, learn from other students, and lean heavily on the resources that are available from the International Students Office, because most schools have that office, and it will help you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elijah. Tandiwe, can you go next, please?
Yes, and I'm going to try to keep this short because I noticed that there's a question for Immaculate, because I had questions for Immaculate. So for me, culture shock. I've been to 3 countries, so there's definitely a lot of culture shock. But luckily, the advantage of me is that the cohort that I'm in, there's like 25 of us. And unfortunately, most of the time, the classes that we take, it's just us in the class, except maybe in Ireland, where we were in classes with other students who were not part of our program. So it's fun that we are all shocked by culture together, and it makes it much easier, because that's another thing. Leaning on the people that I am in my program with for advice in terms of, okay, how did you do this whenever we move to a new country? Because more often than not, there's always one person who has done or who knows more about that country than I do. And the weather has been my biggest challenge. I have a huge problem with the cold, and I cannot get used to Europe being cold 90% of the time. But I wouldn't say I'm adjusting, because it's a lie. Like the slightest cold, I don't like the cold. And then I guess can I ask my question for Immaculate?
Okay, please, I guess she would take yours, and
I'm reading it from the chat as well. Someone said,
awesome.
My question for Immaculate is, how did you manage to obtain a student visa as a self-sponsored student? And is it difficult to cover living expenses by working and studying at the same time? I'm also curious about this question because she's the only one who's actually self-sponsored. And I have heard that in terms of Germany, language being one of the biggest things when you live and work in Germany or study in Germany, that people have to invest time into learning the language in order to be able to either get part-time jobs there or even study there. So her experience as a self-sponsored person.
Okay, thank you, Tandiwe. Immaculate, can you answer the questions? And then I think Ridwan also has he has a question to also ask.
Ooh, okay, I have noticed that I have seen a flood of questions with the name Immaculate. So I think people are curious to know what I did. Now, let me just say one thing, that we say in my country, we have this saying, usually it's a joke, it's a meme. We like to say, things are very different from in the ground, from what we hear and what we think. To be honest, Germany, let me first talk about the culture shock. The culture shock for me was just overwhelming. I won't lie. It was so, in fact, the moment I got here, 2 weeks after, I was already packing my bags to go back. I did not want to stay here. I did not want anything to do with this country. I was already bored with it. First thing that was a big problem for me is just the loneliness. You come here, yeah, there are a big community of people from all over the world, Pakistan, India, Africa, Cameroon, you know, everywhere. It was, I did not know these people. I did not, you know, we've not so much in common with them. And Germans are very shy people, very withdrawn people, introverted. You don't make friends with these people quickly. The second thing that was culture shock for me was just the weather. It's really cold here. For me, the coldness, as much as it is cold and terrible, and I had problem adjusting to this weather, that was actually for me not the problem. For me, the problem is the darkness. Because it gets, the sun comes up so late and then it goes down so early. So you have like 3 or 4 hours of sunlight, and it's almost like you're not getting vitamin D, and and you're just so depressed the whole time. There was absolutely no happiness. I got used to that and got over that, thank God. I still struggle with the darkness though. The other thing that was a big shock for me was, yes, the expenses. The first place I got after struggling to find a place to stay was a house whereby was a very tiny room, 15 meters square, 15 meters squared, and I remember I paid almost 1,000 euros for the 3 months accommodation. It's called what? I forgot in English. The money you pay for 2 months advance, and then you pay rent. So I had to pay like 3 months in advance. Yeah, in advance, caution fee. Then, so like 1,000 euros was gone just within 2 days. And then I have to pay health insurance just because you have an admission letter and you come here into this country and you go to the school and you report that you've arrived. And this is my admission letter. They won't even touch you. Like, they don't even want anything to do with you. You have to like, you have to go back. They will tell you, first turn around, go back, go to health insurance company and bring your health insurance. They won't admit you without it. It's 200 euros per month. You have to pay this every single month if you're below 30 years old. So that was another culture shock, because where I come from, we don't know about health insurances. I never had health insurance in my entire life. We don't even care about health insurance. I don't even think we care about getting sick. So that was a big shock for me. And the fact that they could not even touch my, so another problem I had was the food. I struggled with the food. I remember like 2 months into being in this country, I remember I used to get a lot of pressure on my head due to poor feeding, and I was not able to buy food because everything was tasteless, and I used to cry because I'm hungry and I can't eat the food. I got over that. You get over it, but it took me quite a long time. So I don't want to discourage any one of you who are looking to come here. So the question that most people probably want to know is how I managed to come here. Now, the visa, if you want to come to Germany to study, I would advise people, for me, I never used these people who are agencies or something like this. But what I can advise, what I did, my first thing is, okay, I want to come study here. Where do I start? So the first thing is I go to the website of immigration, and I looked at what is it. I had many countries I could go to. I thought of Canada, I thought of, I thought of Australia, I thought of English. I just focused on English-speaking countries, because why would I want to come to a place like this where they speak German? I still have a problem with it because of the language. So, but I realized that other countries have very high fees. I probably wouldn't be able to afford it. I hear people in the US have hundreds of thousands of, of school fees in student debt and stuff like this. So I wanted to avoid that. But I also did not know how to secure myself a scholarship. Honestly, this I did not know. So I will share my contacts later. I can see your messages. So I went to the website first. So I settled with Germany, and then I went to the website first. And I wanted to look to get a visa for a student. What do you require? That is, for me, what you should look, because it will tell you whether you should go ahead or not. In Germany, it's not easy when you're self-sponsored. So what I did, I noticed the usual things, usual papers like bring your admission letter, bring your birth certificate, bring your school certificates, whatever, those normal documents. But there is one point and one item that is probably going to be a challenge for pretty much of us who come from Africa. And most of us in Africa who are looking to leave Africa to get greener pastures and better opportunities probably won't be able to afford. And this is something called block account. In block account, what I would say is, Germany asks students who are going to stay here, self-sponsored, to block in advance 1 year's amount. And this is a must, no escaping it. And this 1 year amount, for me, 2015, it was 8,040 euros. Now it's been increased. It's 11,208 euros that you have to block. And you are not blocking like in a bank in your country. You have to open a bank account while you're in your country. And you open a bank account with a bank here in Germany. This bank account, you're going to deposit this 11,200 euros. It has to be exact. If it's less, they won't give you a visa. And once you block that, so you can't borrow money from your relatives to put in it, because when you come here, that money will not be unblocked. It's like bazaar. You will keep this money in this block account, and when you get here, they will be unblocking on monthly basis only 934 euros. So it's 934 euros times 12 the whole year. You must have enough money to support you when you come here for the entire year. So you have to find that money if you want to study here. So basically for me, I had a career. So I was a teacher. I studied in Uganda, so it's not my first time to be abroad, although I don't know if I would call Uganda abroad, but it was abroad because it was a different culture from my normal culture. And I studied there bachelor's of science with education. So I taught in Kenya, and I pretty much saved all my money. I saved everything because I knew that was never my, my goal. I only studied that because that's what my parents could afford for me. But then when I started my career, I saved my cash, did a lot of jobs, side jobs, private tutoring, saved everything for about a year or 2 years. And then I took that money and I sponsored myself to come here, at least for the first 1 year. So when I got here and I saw how life here was, I thought I was going to die. So that's probably what will be the problem. But when you come here, well, people come here and they find ways to survive. You do some jobs, student jobs, manual jobs for the first. When you come here, nobody cares about whatever degree you had there. So don't come here thinking that you're a doctor here. Back in your country, you leave your medicine practice, come here and think, oh, they're going to receive you. They don't care. You will have to go back to school and you know, study all over again. And by the time you're in your 3rd or 4th, 5th semesters, you probably can start internships, you can start student jobs, but they are not easy to find. I don't want to give so much hope, and then you come here and you struggle. Students struggle. This is fairly a good country, I would say, in terms of being able to find opportunities compared to where we come from, obviously, but it takes a lot of hard work, and it's not easy, it's not straightforward, nothing. If that's what you think, I would tell you, take that out of your mind. You have to come here knowing that you probably will find a lot of challenges, especially with immigration. So this 11,200, you will be showing it every year, as long as your student visa is valid in this country. You must, every time, for example, now my visa would be valid until end of August. I will be given a letter by May. The letter will come here to my house by May, reminding me that I have to go for my visa sometime. They will give me the appointment when I'll go to the immigration office. Before I go to migration office, I have to put all those documents all over again together, plus block accounts again. Now, some cities are better. The city I used to live before did not want to see like the original amount. They would say, okay, show us at least 4,000 euros. So they don't need the whole 11,000. So they'll say, okay, show us at least some money. And then if you have a job, bring some pay slips, and then they will just give you a visa. But you must always have money. I have a lot of friends who are stuck in credit card bills because they have to use it. They can't raise money. It's like that here.
Immaculate, could you kindly round up, please?
Yeah.
I know Ridwan has been raising his hand for quite some time.
So I wanted to finish just one more thing, and then I let you ask all the questions you want. The other thing is academics. Here it's very hard work. You have to put a lot of effort, but if you ask question about academic, I'll answer that, so I'll leave that. What I wanted to say is the language. So in Germany, we speak German. My study is in English, yes, but I am only using English in school and schoolwork. Anything else outside my gate, you speak German. The best, you have to learn the language. When you have somebody like me who cannot learn languages very fast, you will struggle for many years. I've been here for 10 years, and only now I can say I'm confident enough to use German. But normally, yeah, I would say if you want to come to German, start learning German right back there. And here it's more expensive than studying German back in your country. Goethe Institute in Nairobi is 1,000 times cheaper than coming to join Goethe Institute here. So that's what I would say. I hope I haven't spoken for ages. Now you're free to ask your questions.
Thank you so much, Immaculate. Ridwan, you have your hands up. Any thought on the question?
Yeah, so actually I wanted to contribute exactly to the question, but Immaculate has touched on some of these things, but I still feel I need to mention one or two things, or like clearly delineate something for people to really clearly understand. So to come to Germany as a self-funded student, there are two major ways. The first way, so the whole philosophy behind this thing is the education system is free. You are not paying school fees, free in quotes, right? So you go to school. You are muted, Immaculate, if you're saying something.
Sorry. I forgot to mention the semester fee, so you can mention that.
Right. So the education system is supposedly free. Yes, it is free. You're not going to pay tuition fees, whether you are an international student or a local student, it's free. But then the government says they don't want you to become a liability on the society. So you need to prove that you have enough money for your living expenses. Now, the government computes for every state or in general how much money a student needs to survive per month. They compute that, that the computation include your feeding, they even include money that you go for club, money for other social events and other things together.
Health insurance.
Health insurance.
Yeah.
And it is estimated now that you need close to 1,000 euros per month. So in order to prove that you can take care of yourself, then you need to show that amount of money per month. So for every month, you need 1,000 or probably a bit more for 12 months, right? So for 1 year. And then you put that money in an account in Germany, you open an account. You can do that through your embassy in your country, right? They can help you to do that. When that is done, you put that money in that account, and then the money is locked, as in you can't have access to it. However, every month they will unlock for you the amount of money you need to survive in that month for you to use. That's the first one. The second one is what we call the Verpflichtungserklärung. That is declaration that somebody can declare for you. Somebody who lives in Germany and works and receives salary can declare for you that this person coming here is my son, my nephew, my whatever, or a friend. And I stand in, I declare that I am responsible for his upkeep when he comes to Germany. And that person has to go to the immigration office and then make that declaration. They check his salary, how much he receives. They do some computation, they take out some money, and then they see that, well, the amount of money left for him is enough to sponsor you. So if you have a relative in Germany who is close to you and the relative is willing, then the relative can go and do that declaration. In that case, you're not going to pay, you're not going to create any block account. All you need is that paper that you're going to add to your application, your admission document, and then with other documents, and then you apply for your visa. When you come in and you're going to take your residence permit, you show that document instead of your block account statement. Now, after 1 year, if you do not have the block account, the 12,000 euros or 11,000 euros in your account, you can also show, if you have a job that pays you, let's say, as a student, maybe you can't do more than 500 euros, so maybe 450 euros a month. And then you also have some amount of money in your account. Then you can combine these two and prove that at the end of the month, I am able to get the minimum amount for taking care of my living expense here in Germany. I recall some years back, I did an internship where I was paid 1,000 euros, and that the internship was for 6 months, and I had some few amount of money in my account, and with that, I was able to prove to the immigration office that I have enough money to take care of myself. So these are the options. But the first year, once you're coming in, you have just two options: your declaration that you can take care of yourself, or a block account that you would that shows that you can take care of yourself. So these two things are very necessary. But once you enter the country and you are able to get a job, now getting a job is not easy. I actually rightly said, make sure that you learn the language very well. Your first 6 months that you come, immerse yourself. Don't try to, once you try to use English, try to find people who speak English, then it's always going to delay the learning of the language. So you need to shut yourself altogether, immerse yourself first 6 months, try as much as possible to get the basis of the language, at least to what they call the B1, or even worst case, B2, A2. You can do something. Now, with respect to job, if you are coming from a STEM background, if you are coming from an engineering background, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, computer science especially, finding a job is relatively easy compared to coming with an arts background. You are doing development studies, you are doing, finding a job that is really that will contribute to your education is relatively easy when you have a STEM background, because you should put in mind that whatever job you are taking should contribute to your experience. So if you can go and work in a pizza shop, but the previous job will not contribute to your experience as an electrical engineer, right? Or as a development studies person. So your first 6 months, you can do menial jobs, you can do a cleaning job or whatever. But once you get the hold of the language after first semester or so, you try and get an internship or a job that is towards your education, so that after school, you can prove that you have some experience to work. So these are the key things that I just wanted to add up to what. And then there's also what we call the semester ticket. You need money for bus, train, and that is subsidized for students, and you pay that to the university, and also some administrative stuff that the university does. You pay maybe, for example, where I schooled, those times I used to pay around 200 euros or 190 something euros at the time. I don't know how much it is now.
314.
Come again?
It's 314.
Right. So yeah, but I also think it varies from state to state or from state to state, city to city. Some may be, for example, in Munich, you pay way higher. I know some pay around 600. In Hamburg, it pays very high. In Frankfurt, will also be a bit higher. But if you are in a small city, and this brings to mind that as an African student coming without so much money, try as much as possible to move away from the bigger cities if you don't have a scholarship. So if you don't have scholarship, look for schools that are away from Frankfurt, Munich, Berlin, Düsseldorf. These places are expensive in terms of accommodation, right? So if you would go to places in Bavaria, some quiet place, it has its disadvantages because there are no frequent jobs there as compared to big cities. But if you are coming from Africa without a lot of money, that can work for you if you go to a smaller city and then later on move to a bigger city. I am currently in Munich, and it's very, very expensive here. Right, thank you.
Crowding out other species because there isn't enough oxygen.
Thank you so much, Ridwan. I don't know who has a mic not muted, because we get feedback. Elijah, I think I'll just take Elijah lastly, and then we could get final comments from all the speakers, and then we'll call it a day. Elijah, I know that you are the community manager for 8B Education Investment. I would like you to pretty much tell us what 8B Education Investment does and how you support young people in terms of providing them with funds for academic purposes.
All right. Thank you, Chooks. So I work for 8B Education Investments, as Chooks has said. And what we do is really, I would say we do 4 main things. So the first thing we do is offer financing to African students who have been admitted to eligible schools in Canada and the United States. What do I mean by eligible schools? So we have a list of around 400 universities, and these, and not just universities, programs as well. So mostly we focus on STEM designated programs. So that means if you're going to pursue a degree in engineering or accounting or any other degree which has been designated as a STEM degree in the US, you are eligible to get funding from us. You can learn more about our loan program on our website, 8b.africa. But in summary, we offer up to $25,000 per academic year and up to $50,000 for the duration of the program. So right now we are focusing on students who are in their 3rd year and 4th year. So if you're already enrolled in the US and you're in your 3rd year or 4th year of undergrad, and also if you are already, if you already have an admission offer to go to the US or to Canada, you can also be considered for the loan program. So it's very important to keep in mind that our loan program does not fully cover the cost of studies. So you need to have another source of funding. whether it's from a scholarship or whether it's from personal funds. The amount of money we give you should be treated as complementary to your total cost of attendance. So in addition to providing funding for African students to the US, we also do, we also support with admissions. So if you need advice on how to write a good statement of purpose, you need advice on how to request for recommendation letters, or you need help with taking the GRE exam or the TOEFL exam, you can come to us and we can provide advice and guidance on that. The third thing we do at 8B is offer jobs and internships. So we partner with companies in the US and Canada to offer eligible students. So students who graduate from our, or students who are affiliated with us, we connect them with our employer. But
Okay, I know not. So as you can see, I'm in my room, but I'm struggling with the light from outside. It's very sunny, but to be honest, outside is almost 0 degrees. It's almost impossible to stand there. So final note is, please, if you're looking to get to abroad for studies, for greener pastures, please, if you manage to come here, let's say in Germany, for example, since that's where I live, come here and study. And if you manage, and I hope you all manage, but come here and study. Don't like a lot of people just want to come here because they are running away from, we want to get out of here. Everybody in Kenya wants to get out of Kenya. Everybody in Cameroon wants to get out of Cameroon, if you know what I mean. And some people come here and then they just get stuck here. A lot of people come here and just get stuck here, and they don't continue with their studies. They just get stuck in low-paying jobs. When you get stuck in a low-paying job, you will be poor. There will be no difference than if you had just left, if you were just stayed in your country. Life here can be very harsh if you don't, look forward to what you came here to do. But yeah, that's what I can say. And I hope if you ever want to come to Germany as a self-sponsored student, the best place to start is to study what is required to come here from the website. Don't use agencies which are just going to con you. You don't need those. Once you see that every item there you can meet, then go ahead and look for schools and you probably will manage. That's my final word. I hope you the best. I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Immaculate. I would like to get Ridwan's final thoughts. Ridwan, please.
Come again?
Thank you, Immaculate. I would like to get Ridwan's final thoughts.
Thank you very much. What do I have to say? So it's always exciting to travel and move to a different country. However, whatever country you go to is not like your home country. You do not have parents, you do not have siblings, and that requires lots and lots of preparation. If you don't prepare properly, you would find yourself in a situation that would have been better that you had stayed home. With that said, I also want to mention that in as much as you have all the information, sometimes we process things very differently, right? Some people can go online by themselves and apply, do that. There are those who also need help. And this is natural. You can't run away from it. There are people who might have tried a couple of times and failed,
probably because they are doing something wrong, and they always need somebody who might have had experience to take them through the path. I always use this example that whenever I pick my SOP or statement of purpose that I wrote some 10 years ago, or 11 years ago, when I wanted to go and read a master's degree. When I look at it and I look at how I would have written it now, I see the reason why probably I was rejected in a couple of schools. You see, so when you have somebody who have taken the same path before, who can sometimes peruse your document and look at what you've done and give some advice, it also helps. So if you have somebody like that, go ahead, look for someone to help you. If you have friends, let them look at your documents, let them advise you. The advice should not be the final thing, but take advice, listen to people like you are doing now. And you may end up reducing your chances of making errors or being refused admission. Personally, I do lots of these online. Now, due to my busy schedule, it's not as frequent, but I do hold Twitter spaces on these topics. I invite people who have a lot of experience, mostly PhD candidates or professors or postdoc, people who can talk about these subjects and also advise. So maybe I'll write my Twitter handle in the chat, and then if you are interested, you can follow me. And also, I have a group of people who also help with these things. And I mentioned in the beginning of my submission that I also do mentorship. So tech mentorship, if you want to get into software engineering and you need some guidance on how to approach it, what areas to focus, you can also always hit me up. And when I have the time, I would respond to you. So yeah, basically this is all I would like to say. And I also like to thank you for the opportunity. And I hope I was able to share something meaningful to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ridwan. Elijah, your final thoughts, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chooks. I think the last thing I would say is really, I think I cannot emphasize the value of doing research enough. Make sure you research as much as you can. And researching is not just about going online, it's also connecting with people who are there or who have been there. Talk to them and really make sure you understand what you're getting into. There's nothing as bad as going into a place and you don't really know what you're getting yourself into. So make sure you really do your research and connect with people and really just learn as much as you can before you leave your country and go abroad. I think that's all I have to say.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
Just for 2 seconds. Somebody is asking me how many jobs I have. How many jobs I have? Here I've only, okay, I wanted to say something very vital that I had forgotten. And I think also my colleague from, I think the other guy, I'm sorry, I did not catch your name, from Germany did not mention it as well. In Germany, you are limited on how much you can work. So if you're coming here thinking, oh, I'm coming to study, but I will also make money, that might not be as possible as you think. Because in Germany, once you get your visa, give me a second, I show you something. Once you get your work visa determines how many days you can work in a year. It looks something like this. This is a work visa, and it tells you very clearly here somewhere that you can only work for 120 days. So you can't just go work anyhow you want, do many jobs. It's not possible. If you do one job and then you take a second job, immediately they will see it and you will pay a lot of taxes and it will have been for nothing. So in Germany, you are limited. It's not, I hear in US people take 3 jobs. Here it's not like that. You're not gonna come here and make money. Absolutely not. Once you pay your rent and buy food and pay your health insurance, which is the most expensive expense, you have TV taxes, you have internet, those things will take away pretty much everything, and you probably just have 100 or 50 euro left. That's why they tell you block money. Your parents have to be able to assist sometimes, but in Africa, we don't have people from China and Japan. Usually, I don't see them struggling like we do as Africans. But when you come here, forget about, don't think you're just coming here to make money, send to your parents' home. It might not be possible unless when schools are closed, you get something called ferian jobs. They can allow you work full time. But when schools open, that no longer exists. You are even no boss. And here there are no black jobs. Nobody will give you jobs and pay you under the table. Germans are very, very good at following their rules.
Thank you so much.
Nobody even wants to talk about that story. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you so much.
Always had one job. I wanted them to know that it's very important.
Thank you so much, Immaculate. I think we can continue the conversation in the comment section so that we can get to answer as many questions as we are able to.
Yes.
I would like to get the final thoughts from Thandiwe. Thandiwe, please, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Chuks. So my closing remarks is I will reiterate what the other speakers have said. It's important to do research. And I know so far we've only spoken about the United States and Canada, and for me, parts of Europe. But in all honesty, pick a country that you are interested in Europe. Most countries have national, what do you call them? National scholarships for international students. So sometimes it's not just the ones we've mentioned here. If you can think of a country that you are maybe interested in going to, look it up and see what kind of scholarships are available in the institutions you're interested in, and apply and ask questions. Because I've seen that most countries have scholarship for international students. You just need to apply and ask questions and research. So that's my closing remark. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thandiwe. It's unfortunate that we have to come to the end of today's webinar. Interestingly, one of the things that resonates across all the speakers is that you need to carry out your personal research, talk to people, ask questions, send emails as much as you can, and believe definitely that you would get a favorable response.
And
once again,
it's very important to always follow exactly things as they are stated in the website of every country you're going. Don't go praying to your pastor. You just have to follow those rules, nothing else.
Thank you so much, Immaculate, for that addition. Before we close, kindly follow us. If you are here to follow Yalda Africa on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, we also have a Telegram group as well as a YouTube channel. Today's webinar, which is being recorded, will be uploaded later in the day on YouTube. So please subscribe to the YouTube channel so as to be able to replay this as many times as possible. And as well, you could send us, you could connect with us as well on LinkedIn. Once again, thank you so much for everyone. Thanks so much to everyone for joining. It's a pleasure to have you join us today. We hope to also invite you next time when we have these conversations again. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Ciao.